Okay. You got it. What's going on, everybody? Justin Thomas here from TopShelf Fandom. Clearly reading off of my phone. We have the Westworld Theory Cast. I'm joined by Jenny and Brett. There is the Monday episodes with Ken and Axel. Also, the Friday cleanup crew with Gina, Tim, and Andy. You can find out more about the DVR Podcast Network and all of the other great series in which they cover. Better Call Saul is one of the main ones they're doing right now that they're covering with Ashaya from History of Westeros and Axel. So please do take a moment to write a review. Give that 5-star to them and give that subscribe. It really does help them, and become a member of a Patreon for daily DVR. My name's Justin Thomas. If you didn't know, I'm here with the lovely Jenny, the lovely Brett. This is our first time meeting on camera. I said, hey, let's do it the YouTube way. What's going on, everybody? We're going to talk some Westworld Season 3, Episode 5, genre.
Hey, Justin. How you doing?
I'm all right. It went down from there. I tried to embody Axel,
Sorry.
And now my misery has set in.
I'm always just like, hey, Axel. So,
I know.
Hey, Justin, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, Brett. Yeah, no, I'll never match that energy again for the cast. So go ahead.
I thought it sounded pretty good.
That was the Carney in me. That was my old DJing voice. So, all right. We are very lucky to have this nice simulcast, this nice collaboration. Axel is busy because he said, hey, you want to know what would be cool for a podcast? Every show ever. And that's what he's doing. So we are going to go ahead and step in for him as he stepped in for, or offered to step in for me when I thought I might be dying of COVID. But I soldiered through. So we're here with two great people. And I love the amount of research you've done. I love what you've done as your body of work as a whole. And I'm really excited to talk about this episode because this is one, admittedly, that I didn't have a lot of time to watch before my after show, which I'm a little bit trying to redeem myself for, but I'm not going to lie, still am a little bit mixed on. So overall feelings, first to you, Brett, and then to you, Jenny, just about the show in general, meaning this episode.
I did enjoy the show. I'd say the first time I watched it with Westworld, it always takes a while to sink in. But I'm a sucker for a good origin story. We got a lot of good, Sirach backstory. We got some interesting Caleb flashbacks, and so it was pretty good. I liked it.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. Those are going to be points that we're going to be touching on. Jenny, how'd you feel about it overall?
I really liked it. It was funny because normally when I'm watching the first time through on Sunday night, I don't take any notes. I take my notes when I do my rewatch, but I had just these, I don't know, what was it, 8 lines I sent to you, Brett?
8 lines? You guys can't see on camera what I'm holding up right now. These are the notes in which these two lovely people take. Please, first off, be jealous of this gold. Second off, know how attentive they are and how dedicated they are, because this is insane.
When I do my rewatch, I do take a bit of tedious notes, but I guess my notes I think they're 4.5 pages long this time. But yeah, I sent him 8 lines during my watch or after my watch on Sunday night because they were things that actually occurred to me while I was watching it right away. And that doesn't happen to me that often because usually I'm just trying to get it all in. And then the rewatch is what brings out any thoughts that I have on it or whatever. But I had thoughts when I watched it on Sunday night. I really thought it was good.
At inception. Thought at first inception. I love it. And I've been reading Jenny's thoughts and making the same tired joke before I've ever met Jenny, which she can say whatever she wants to me, and rightfully so. But I've always been a fan right here. And Brett Factual. Am I saying that right, or is it Brett Actual?
Bretual.
Okay, so we're on in 3 ways, as always. Yeah, so no, I've been a fan of as well. You guys are both professionals. I'm really excited to do this, really excited to step into the shoes, even if they aren't accompanied by some badass cufflinks from cufflinks.com. Waiting on those, Axel. But yeah, no, and talk with you guys, because it is true. Westworld is at first entertainment, and then there's always these profound insights that you can, have come to you in an rewatch or the second watch or the third watch or maybe the fourth watch. But even in retrospect, going back and watching the first season is so enlightening to me. So I did find, Jenny, in your notes that you have a lot of cool insights into the dynamic, which we knew was similar with Ford as well as Bernard, that take place within Serac and his brother in Dempsey. Did you want to touch on any of that before we get into it? And then we'll go over to Brett to his overall, theory about what we see going on with the business, the corporate dynamic.
So, yeah, it was when Serac, it was actually when he was talking to the Brazilian president, when they were sitting out on the airfield. And when I saw that scene, the way, and I'm not a film person like Axel is, or, I don't know all that stuff about the way that, but the scene, like, it was set up the same way as the scene.
The cinematography was meant to mirror.
Like the way they were sitting there and everything. And it was like, I noticed it right away that it mirrored back to that scene with Ford and Teresa in season 1 when they were sitting at that restaurant. I had like little break line by line things that I thought were interesting about it, but like if y'all had any thoughts on it too, I would gladly hear them. I just thought it was interesting how the things that Ford was saying to Teresa were also similar to the things that Serac was saying to the President Philo, and how they were talking about the different things with sorry, my brain's not working. This happens to me sometimes.
Well, you spent it all on these extensive notes. Don't worry about it.
I could read you.
No.
What I wrote.
Can I jump in on it then?
Yeah,
because and I think you've really shed light on this for me, and I want to have you on one of these after shows. But what I see as well, I definitely agree. And what we've seen is, and this is my own takeaway going off of your very, very intelligent insight here, is that, it's all about when you're trying to convince somebody that they need you. It's not that they're better with you. It's that it's not a possibility to exist without you, right? I think that's what's been exhibited in this meeting. This wasn't a play for, hey, I could make this so much better by Ford with Teresa, nor, Serac with Philo. This was what are you going to do without me? More situation.
Yes.
Both of them had like a power dynamic flip occurred. Because Teresa went in to the Ford conversation and she felt totally comfortable and control about laying it out for him, just like the Brazilian president did with Serac. And by the end of the conversation, both of them realized, well, I don't really have a choice in this at all. So it was very similar. I agree. That's good stuff, Jenny.
Yes. Thank you guys for stepping in, because I was like stumbling.
Oh, don't worry. You just owe me for the rest of the podcast because it's going to happen constantly with me. No. And it's obvious that they're mirroring it, right? And like what Brett, you just said, I thought I had it, like Teresa thought she had it under control. Philo thought they had it under control. This is their mistake, in my opinion. They thought they were controlling the game. They didn't realize that the game creator was there. It's like, oh, I've got this under control. And then you've got, somebody now think of a famous game maker, Bradley, something around those lines. Milton Bradley. There you go. Yeah. You're essentially saying, oh, no, I got it. I got it under control. I got Boardwalk. I've got, all of the best estates. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, who's the one that set the rules for this game? Do you think that's a fair comparison, that it's like, okay, yeah, so you think you got this game under control, but who's the one making the rules for this game? Who's the one that's created the game in which you live in?
Yes.
Exactly.
That is it. Yes. Thank you, guys.
Martin Garvins is another. Martin Gardens.
No, it's Marvin.
Marvin Garvins. Yeah, there we go. I'll mix them both together.
Wetmore Avenue and Park Place. And man, I played a lot of Monopoly when I was a child.
Yeah. If I can't get it right the first time, I'll just mash them together. So, we know what I'm talking about, though. So, yeah, we see the almost opening salve, right? To a war, because we have not seen government explored in this series thus far. We've seen it being a corporate metocracy. So what we're dealing with is a situation in which, capitalism rules the world. Evidently, if you do good, because that sounds great at surface level, hey, you guys do what you're supposed to do, everybody's going to be fine. But it doesn't turn out to be as pleasant or as, simple as that. So what are your guys' thoughts about the injection of government and who really is running things and where they're running it from? Because seemingly he's in a sky blimp above the world in running things. Serac, what do you think about the fact that he had to go to the government?
I don't think he had to go to the government. I think that he felt that that was the easiest course of action to take because he went to that president and said, hey, you need to stop fucking around with your people and stop taking away whatever it was he was taking away from those people in the north that was causing the unrest, and let them have it back. Stop doing what you're doing, because, and then the guy's like, how are you going to insult me here in front, or threaten me in front of my military? And he's like, this isn't a threat, dude. I'm just letting you know. This is how it's going to go down. So you can either do what you're supposed to do or bye-bye.
Ooh, I love that. Do what you're supposed to do. And I think this really touches, this episode specifically touches on do what you're supposed to do. One of Brett's brilliant theories here is Sirach's brother doesn't exist. And we do get a background and a backstory to Sirach and his brother in what we've seen. Brett, do you kind of want to walk us through a little bit of that? Who the man is at telling people there's levels to this game?
Yeah, so it occurred to me that, well, all these files that Sirach, all the files on Sirach that Dolores is accessing throughout the show, they were put into the system by Sirach. So this is essentially the story that he wants Rehoboam to consider when it strategizes. So it occurs to me that it's possible that Sirach's brother doesn't even exist. If you consider much of the backstory is that his brother is the real mastermind and the architect of the system, while Sirach is mostly standing by. But everything that we have learned so far, including Liam saying, you know, who is a child, a part of this story, was saying that Sirach is the original architect. Also, Sirach said his brother was the one who wanted Dempsey Sr. killed, but we know that Sirach is a control freak. There's no reason for his business partner, who's kind of overstaying his welcome, to be around anymore. So the simple explanation for me is that Sirach himself wanted Dempsey, you know, killed or eliminated out of the picture the whole time.
He might have agreed, but his brother did actually say the words.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
In that file, he did. But
well, he said it out loud to Sirach when they were meeting with Dempsey and young Liam in the past, in his memory. But I guess that he fed this stuff to Rehoboam, so he could have like just made it sound. Oh,
yeah. My argument is that memory is a part of the file that he put.
No, because he doesn't exist, Jenny.
So he could have made the memory of him whispering, you know, to sell the story.
Sorry, I forgot the lead here.
No.
Listening to the rest of it, and then I totally forgot that's what we're.
First off, I'm landing in between, and I'm not just doing that to, you know, because there's a chance that we never talk again after this, anyways. If you know, I can.
No, I'm not saying I agree or.
Yeah. No, I'm joking. I just
had forgotten that was what the premise was.
I'm proposing that it's a possibility that his brother does.
Yes, and I'm just joking. Yeah, I'm saying it's a possibility that this third party gets, you know, really left on the outs after myself, unfortunately. But here's the thing. What I think you got here, Brett, is a very keen insight into what's going on, and it's very similar to Ford and Arnold, right? Because the capability of creating, or even more so, erasing evidence of somebody's presence in somebody's, you know, their actions within the formation of a company or a intellectual property, whatever it may be. What we've seen here is that the big takeaway is Sirach enters everything in, right? Whether or not the brother is fake, real, the big takeaway is, what do we know for sure? That he enters everything in. Is there a consensus on that one?
Yeah, well, and that's also part of the theory, is that he wants to remain on the peripheral as much as possible. So he wants somebody that he can hold responsible that's not himself, and it throws it on his brother. He's the one that's the architect. He's the one that wanted Dempsey killed, and he's the one that's the outlier, which is another thing, is that I wonder if Sirach realized that he himself is the outlier through previous, you know, builds, you know, the predecessors of Rehoboam. he could have realized that he was an outlier, and he didn't want to put that information into Rehoboam. So, because of what Rehoboam tends to do with outliers, put them through the wood chipper and they spit out dead or useless, whatever the line is.
Yeah.
And so he kind of threw that on his brother as
like a scapegoat. It's like you can't fire somebody that's not in management. So why don't I create management, and then we can say that we put them in the wood chipper.
So he feeds the data in, and then he holds someone else responsible so that he's kind of anonymous.
I love it. A virtual scapegoat. I love it. But and again, that's a great theory. And I think that the great thing about it is the information in which you provided is we know for sure that Serac is in complete control of this system. So that has other implications as well, right? Whether or not that ends up being true or not, we can all agree that he is the one that's in charge. This has other implications. This is similar to Ford's situation, except for you're proposing a kind of a switch in the Ford took 35 years to correct his mistake and see what Arnold saw. Serac might have taken a little bit to create somebody else having the same mistake in which he made, meaning, scapegoating somebody. So there's a parallel there, but I don't like the idea of there being that direct parallel. I've always had a kind of an issue with that, even though it's cyclic. I get that about the show, but I've always had kind of an issue with this being far too similar of a creation story that Delos has. And I guess it's something we can debate. And Jenny, if you have any thoughts on that, my takeaway from this is excellent theory, Brett. And it's something that you need to get on YouTube and put a video together because that will sell like hotcakes. You have 100,000. But at the same time, there's, logic to it. There's credence to it. And I like it. So, let's put it out there right now. Let's put it on the board. There is a chance that Serac's brother doesn't exist. At the very least, what we can take away from Brett's intelligent insight here is that we know for a fact that within the context of our story, we're dealing with a owner of a company, a controller of a large corporation that seems to be more in control than the government, that is able to do whatever he wants and maybe virtually scapegoat somebody else. So he has complete autonomy over it.
Pretty much.
Dangerous, right?
I think there is merit to your theory. I do not know if I am on that train yet, but
I think this is something we'll find out soon enough because I have a feeling that Bernard and Stubbs are going to this re-education center where supposedly his brother is or was at some point in the recent past.
And that's what the only thing, Brett. And now we're just meeting for the first time on air, and you'll learn that I'm a Debbie Downer, and you'll also learn that you can poke holes in what I say, and please feel free to. That is my issue with this theory, is that the re-education, first off, as soon as you start saying re-education, people, you're fucked. You're done. Like that, your history will never, ever, and we're going to talk about how we shape history and the stories we tell about it, because it comes into play here shortly, and trains as well. Nice connections. I missed a few segues. But about, how they come about these re-education systems. And, we do see that his brother is put into it, and we do see the type of ideology in which he follows. So I think it is speaking to who he is as a character. I was never of the mind, because I don't know, it's because I'm a pseudo-intellectual or, this wannabe playwright, that I can always tell that at least stories like Westworld are never going to be lasers on top of sharks' heads. There's always going to be some reason for the evil person to be thinking it's ethical to do the evil in which they do, like to bloody their hands for the revolution. But I think that we got some newly added layers here with these re-education systems, and that possibly ties to Caleb. So that's where I see the disconnect in the theory, because they're using it to bridge together a few story threads. But at the same time, and this isn't the only one you came up with just for this episode, and I got the honor of being able to read some of yours from before, and God, they are good. I love them. Much better than just simulation within a simulation within a simulation to nothing matters. But we will move on, and we'll talk about simulation, to the main theme of this episode, which is the title, genre. We are living in a world that's built off of tropes. We have history in retrospect, which is story, Americana, the Old West, which was really just full of syphilis and slow death. But, it's all about the the white savior coming into town and making everything better. Or the guns, then you get the anti-spaghetti westerns, in which you have the old gunslinger that has to bring himself back to these ways that he's tried to seek redemption for. So we are very much so creatures of story. Stories are just like books are doors. They open a door to another world. So we are seeing an atmosphere in which we see Dolores connecting with humans, right, guys? But is she connecting with humans because they're in loops just like she is? Or are they in loops just like she is because of Westworld, because of Delos? Has Delos created the loops in which humans live in? Or is there just this, very, very much so, like high similarity connection to the way in which we live and the way in which these hosts live, which I think is the overall message of the show. But is Delos responsible for these loops, meaning her kind was responsible in the creation, or is it just circumstance?
No, they're not responsible, because the timeline of events, the explosion in Paris happened in 2025 supposedly, and Delos already existed at that time. So but it wasn't old. I don't know that it was open yet. But they had that 3-year period that they were working on this stuff before Westworld ever even opened to the public. So I don't think that Delos had that effect, because I think that it was close in timeline when Sirach and his brother, or not brother, developed insight and started with the predecessors of Rehoboam to try and make a god to make the world a better place. And they wound up at the same time creating something very similar to what Delos was doing inside of Westworld, because they had decided they wanted to make money off of it, and they were being greedy, so they did their thing. And it's like I think the things happened nearly simultaneously, very close to simultaneously, but this group of people was doing it on the outside world, and this group of people was doing it in a theme park. But they were doing it in the theme park in a way that you could let go of all your inhibitions and have your bad side come out and do whatever you want to do. And on the outside world, those people wouldn't have been going to the park anyway, because they didn't have money, because Rehoboam or its predecessors were putting them they were telling them what their lives could be. So if you were someone that might be an outlier, they were putting you in menial jobs, and you would never have the money to go and be able to express yourself in those ways that people could do inside the parks at Westworld.
Hold on, because I'm calling my boss to quit. No. Okay, let me rephrase it though, because oh my God, that was really good. No, that was really good. No, that's usually what I do, but way better. So no, epic rant and a lot of insight on that. No, really good. All puns intended with insight. So let me rephrase my now shameful question. Is Rehoboam able to operate in which way they're able to operate because of Delos? And the causality, as you point out, doesn't add up. I'll do a sound effect for, it's just a shutdown on Justin here, clap back. But no, you're right, because the causality isn't there. It's too close. So, is it a situation in which we have a Delos, because they do need the information from Delos, so they have become dependent on them. But this isn't a new philosophy on culture, ideology per se, that Delos made available to them. Delos tech, and we have always heard, since Teresa, the very first season, that there is a difference between what the park wants, what management wants, what Delos wants. So there's always been alternative motives and stuff like that. So I think what we're led to believe is that, Delos created a atmosphere in which, many people had different motivations to create, and different ideas and ideals about what it would be. What it turned out to be was just like everything in this world, taken advantage of and sold and essentially, I'm trying not to say hoard out, but I can't think of another word, so I'm saying hoard out. Sorry, Axel. But yeah, it is something that I believe was technology that was exploited, but, with the very notion of it was very well known, in which this technology was going to be used for things that weren't necessarily advantageous. Brett, do you think that the world has drastically changed because of the Delos tech, or do you think it was going down that route anyways?
That's interesting. I think it would probably go down that route anyway, because that's the nature of, I guess, human history, is that you're always going to have people that are in positions of power that are greedy and want more control. So I feel like you have that when you look at Ford, and when you look at Sirac, you have two people that built places where they could control, exactly what was going on. It is interesting that Sirac did have a transaction with Delos 20 years ago. And I believe the way Charlotte Hale put it is, when she was talking to William, she said, you sold this guy a piece of your technology and he built a fortune out of it, and now he's coming after yours or something.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that was, that piece of information did, I guess, probably jumpstart the Rehoboam project.
But the belief in the goal was already there. It's just they might have not had, they might have not have adapted it as quickly, but it wasn't like this is what, Delos has a park in which we could exploit this, to use this, because they both have different goals in the end. There's immortality on one end, and then there's control of the mortal on the other end. And that's what we're going to get into, is the controlling of society, which this is a series that starts with, can hosts be sentient? First off, named by us, branded by us. It is claimed and named, and every bit of the criterion, applies to us. People that are new to me that are listening to this on the podcast, I'm not a big fan of people just claiming consciousness exists within us because we got it and nobody else does, and we should dismiss it in others. I'm currently going through Gillian Jane's Bicameral Mind, a dead theory, yes, but still very, very much so applicable to this story and how we should go about the way in which they are presenting us with this information. So we're dealing with a situation in which it's like we are mapping consciousness, or at least trying to. We need technology to do so, but we also see now the real world isn't just this place in which is completely free. And then, like, I believe it was Brett, you said it, that they were not just going there because that's the only place they could do it. This is a place in which, yes, the rich were able to engage in it on a higher level, but what they've used is a little drug called genre, in which we learned about in the previous episode, but really get down the rabbit hole with this episode. Genre is a drug that is much like it sounds. It allows you to live through tropes, just like there are westerns, just like there are sci-fi, horror, and so forth, action. We go through it. So it is all about not just what you're doing, but how you perceive what you're doing and how society can mold that, but also, technology can be definitely molded through the adjustment of, their attributes with a iPad. But psychedelically, as well as pharmaceutically, you can be adapted to just the same degree, if not higher. Has always been my argument. And I think it's a commentary that's been in these dystopian novels since the beginning of time. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World touches on this. And there's another novel in which Nolan claims to be drawing off of. For this one, I have it somewhere in my notes. I have not read it yet. I braved through a Brave New World. But what are your guys' initial thoughts on our initial journey through genre, starting with a little bit of film noir?
Go ahead.
I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure how to interpret the genre drug into this episode with Caleb.
Well, then I'll lead you here because we have Stand on Zanbar is the cited Hugo Award-winning novel. If you can name me 5 other Hugo Award-winning novels, anybody, please, on the spot without looking it up. Not you guys, but yeah, then feel free to boast in my face. But I guarantee you can't. Anyways, so this is, a trope in which we have adhered to throughout time about, having a populace that is subdued through pharmaceuticals, and now we see them subdued through technology, excuse me. But I see genre as that very notion. It is, if you are going to have a controlled society, you need a docile society. I know for a fact, as a past DJ of 10 years in clubs in Detroit, that the way I got through my nights, unfortunately, and what kept me up for many nights after was the way in which I got through those nights, being content, right? It is, a narrative about how we have toured our minds in order to just experience the everyday, just nonchalant, really mundane in a way that is euphoric, in a way that is exciting for us,
Okay, so I'm following you there.
Yeah, drugs make things better, but don't do them is kind of the thing.
Because kind of like with the different ways he goes through the film noir thing, and then like the action thing, and then the love story thing, and then the one with the Major Tom or Space Oddity, where it's he asks Giggles what genre is this, and he says it's reality, man.
Yeah,
or something like that. And then there's the one with the Shining theme or whatever at that. So, but basically these people are living on loops. Like the people, the hosts in the park, they're living on their loops, and so they have little of excitement or whatever, because everything is predictive, and they've just like that. I mean, why do you think like Caleb supposedly was going to commit suicide in 10 to 12 years or whatever? Like, he had nothing. He was just living this day-to-day grind and didn't seem to have anything that made him happy. And to try and keep his mom in that facility that she was in, he would do these side criminal jobs, and that would give him a little bit of excitement. But for most people, taking something like this genre drug would like give them something out of the ordinary to spice up their what
within the ordinary.
Yeah. So,
keep them content. Yeah, it is a great scheme for keeping, because the best way to predict what people are going to do is by having a docile populace, and we've seen this. Aldous Huxley does it through shock waves throughout floor panels, very archaically, in Soma, and you go on to see great songs being made about Soma. But yeah, it is to keep you content. Trust me, the most content people in the world are high as shit. So yeah, if you don't want people to question what's going on around them, yeah, genre is a great way to go about it. So we do see this experience, but also we're getting to see him go through these events, which are definitely a trying time for him, right? Because up until now, Dolores has told him he's been given a very viable and very advantageous scenario by Dolores. I'm not saying she's lying, but I'm saying her pitch, and I'm interested in what you had to say about the spread. It is, definitely leaning, obviously, no shame, but more towards Dolores's way, because you're going to die. They predict that you got nothing going on. I'll help you. And she looks like she is this like third party that's like, I'll even give you money if you don't want to be with me. I mean, come on. That's a good sell right there. It's like, she doesn't even say, I'll save your life. It's like, well, I'll save your life if you'll do this with me. No. She says, I'll just save your life. If you want money, you can have it. She gives him a cause. She gives him motivation. So he is now at this point where he keeps having to do things, and he is still not questioned her reality, his reality, her biological humanity. So this is a scenario in which he is
questioning it in this episode.
Yes. No, that's what I'm saying. Is he's getting to that point, but he's drugged. He's drugged, and he's seen, the Bell craze that is, like a Vietnam, I believe it is, it's Apocalypse Now, in which they use that, and you have a series of genres that he filters through, and we can have this in our life as well. How we feel about a certain situation can dictate the actual information about that situation. We are emotional beings, not really logical beings, unfortunately. Not to down on anybody, but it's just a fact. So it is what it is. We let emotion trump things. So if you have something that gives you a euphoric feeling, a hallucinogenic experience, it is going to jam up your sensorium, and it is going to make you view this in a separate way. So this whole trip on a train, which by the way, a train goes which way? One way. The way they want you to go. So he's on a train to the destination, which he gladly got on, but once you're on that train, You're going one way and one way only. And his ability to question it, you could argue by some people that benefit, and I know them, that will claim they have the most insightful and profound thoughts when they're tripping. They will say that this is the best experience for Caleb. But also, we see him questioning things. Mainly, what Liam says to him. When Liam puts on glasses and looks at Caleb, what does he say? He says, "It's you." What does that mean to you guys?
Well, he seemed afraid of him after he looked at him through the glasses. And then at the end, when they were on the beach, he said to him, "You did it." And so what do you guys have any thoughts on? Sorry, I'm answering a question with a question. But
No. Continue on. Let's see if you can do it the most.
Do you have any thoughts on what Caleb has done that's so frightening to Liam? Like, what is it that he did? Do you think it was that he killed his friend? Do you think it was something else?
Yes.
And then, in addition, because Caleb is an outlier, do you think that maybe, because Brett has a theory about him, Caleb being a host-human hybrid?
Wait, that Brett.
And I've thought his theory was pretty good. I'm like, I'll go with that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'll go with that. It sounds good. But maybe he's some sort of new hybrid created by Sirach because of him being an outlier, and maybe he was sent to those re-education places, and maybe that's part of what Liam was seeing when he looked at him. So I have lots of questions.
Oh, no. And let me go before you, Brett, because I was trying to lead us into your theory. And let me be very clear, because I'm not going to assume you watch all my videos by any means. It's not even a fair thing to do. But I will always question simulation theory. I will always question making humans that embody, humanity as a host, because I feel like that is just like taking your story back 2 steps. You get what I mean? But I appreciate logic, and what I've read is logic behind your theories. So let me preface it with that and play devil's advocate, because it is not, because trust me, I hate myself some simulation within a simulation within, just to a point it doesn't even matter anymore. And it's like, all right, we get reality, it's not finite. But anyways, what I've seen is we've given it's Jenny. I'm so used to Johnny. Sorry, Johnny. Jenny's better though. He's our behavioral tech. Jenny has just alluded to is that he seemed fearful. He gave this expression of, it was you, not just, it's you. It was you, like, oh my God, like you're the ghost of Christmas past, he's Scrooge Duck in it there. And then we see at the very end, he did it in almost a completion sense, like meaning you completed what you needed to do for these trained. And I hate to say this, but I will never use this type of selective research that others use. I will always say this happened. I have to acknowledge it happened, because within our story, we've been given a narrative in which he is scared, but then he seems a little bit relieved that he has concluded these sets of action in which he set out to conclude that are necessary for some greater scheme, which would allude to some type of simulation, some type of something at least we're not keen to. So yeah, it doesn't make sense because he seems afraid of him, but I would argue also shocked that it is him. And there's this key that none of us know about. So what is this key? Is Caleb this key? Is he changed because of this re-education system, or is this just something that he was always set out to do? Because I'm going to take the middle ground like a pansy on this one and say it's a mix of all of them. No clear point, but made by me. Note it.
Well, the Caleb as a host human hybrid theory was an episode 1 theory, for the record. Now, it hasn't been totally discounted yet, but
right, we still like it.
I still like it, but we haven't really seen any we haven't seen a whole lot of that kind of technology yet this season. So, but what I will say about Caleb is I believe he is the outlier of all outliers. And the way I interpreted Liam's reaction to him is that he saw into Caleb and saw that he did kill his friend, and that he's the kind of person that I guess can kill his friend. Now, I do believe, based on the flashes that he had, the memory flashes, that he was probably forced into becoming a double agent and was forced to save the whoever was kidnapped there with the bag over his head. Probably some political leader.
Yeah.
Was taken hostage. Caleb, as a double agent, was probably forced to release him and then cover his tracks, which meant killing his friend.
Francis. We are talking about Francis, right? Who he
Yes.
speaks to on the
Yeah,
phone.
his friend Francis, right. So, and that's probably the mission that he was given because he's an outlier and he was thrown into war, and maybe he was thrown into war and that didn't work. And so then he was made a double agent, hoping that, the killing of his own friend would force him to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
He has not killed himself. And so it seems like whatever the system keeps throwing at him, he keeps overcoming it. Even though
that makes so much sense.
He doesn't quite understand, can't quite remember everything because at the same time they're wiping his memories, I'm sure, and like brainwashing him.
Yep, as the host.
But that, I believe Liam kind of saw that he's capable of doing that kind of thing, and that's why he's like the worst of them.
Like he is so much similar to Dolores. God, you really just sold me on that. I'm not even joking. Like you just pointed out how he can be so similar to Dolores, but how that isn't advantageous to her, right? Those similarities work against her. She sees them, she identifies with them, she connects with them, and then it can be used against her.
It could be because he is an example of someone who's apparently cannot be controlled. He doesn't fit in a loop. He's unable to be eliminated. It seems like,
which makes him stand out of Rehoboam, but also makes him stand out to Dolores. So they have handpicked him to do what you just said. And again, this is me conceding here because I don't like the idea that he's anything other than just I'm like a star-crossed lover. I just want them to be, married and do well. And I don't believe in marriage, but I want them to be husband and wife. I want all this like white picket fence thing to happen for some reason. I don't know what it is in me. It's a sucker in me, but that makes a lot of sense because what we're dealing with here is a situation in which this guy is nothing but genuine, right? So how could he not be genuine? Well, you just kind of explained how genuine can get you in the pits.
Mm-hmm.
Shit.
In this world, sure.
Yeah. So there's my excuse. Holy crap. Brett, you just laid one on us right there. So, I knew Axel was onto something. So yeah, we are definitely left with options, especially with that third party. Now you bring up a gentleman in the mask. For those that aren't as attentive, and I wasn't on the first viewing, I did not notice him. It's a blink of an eye almost. We do see a hostage situation. So there is a bounty of sorts. There is stakes on the line. So you believe that to be who?
Me, I don't know. I believe it's one of the political games that Sirach is playing with some countries or something like that. But I'm not exactly sure who that is.
That was in a prior flashback, right? That wasn't in this episode, was it?
There was in Masks, Caleb and Francis doing so. It always seems shady to me.
I remember the one, there's a guy on his knees with a bag over his head, but I remember that being in a different episode.
Did you watch Watchmen, though?
No, actually, no.
Oh, I was going to say,
I've seen one episode.
I got a lot of Watchmen flashbacks. I wasn't even a joke. Like, I've had tried to, separate my Watchmen.
I was going to watch, I was considering watching it, and then we didn't have HBO anymore, and now I have HBO Go, but I have not watched it.
Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting. I am actually not even joking. Like, I've had to separate myself from Watchmen during this episode. It had so many vibes.
I just watched Altered Carbon, the second season of that. Have you watched that? And I'm like, this is...
not yet.
Those guys are way too fit for me.
Did you watch the first season of it, either of you?
Because the body shame that I'll feel after that. They're just so fit. Like, honestly, I used to be in really good shape, and I was get sad.
But I mean, those people have consciousness. It's like human consciousness from years and years.
But I'm self-conscious.
They put it in a new human sleeve.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So my vanity and my self-awareness, God, please take it away. Please. Anyway, I didn't agree.
Sorry.
I didn't agree to that. No, those abs, I didn't agree. I'm sorry. No, valid point. But yeah, I think Brett, you're onto something there, and we are on a journey, a literal train going in one direction. That at one point I said Caleb is going to have to ask why, or he's going to have to say no. So he starts to question what's happening, but it's more so, right, Jenny, that he's questioning what his reality is. Do you agree?
Yeah, like when he he is questioning what those flashbacks. I think they bother him, and he wants more frame of reference for them. But like, he did finally start asking questions out loud when he saw in the scene when after she had released the Kraken, those people stopped the car and they started to fire at him, and she immediately jumped in front of him, and then she took at least 3 bullets. I saw 3 bullet holes in her, and she turned around and he was looking at her, and his eyes were like huge, and she's like, oh, like zips up her jacket so he can't. And then he asks her about it later, and she's like, we'll talk about that later. So yeah, she's going to have to tell him soon about her reality, and then we're going to have to figure out, how is he going to react to that? But yeah, I think he is starting to have some more questions about his own reality because of the flashbacks that he keeps having, and they seem to be becoming more frequent.
And also, the chick that he's kind of seen keeps getting shot, and she keeps being okay. So it's like, hey, I met this really good-looking girl that's really smart. Oh my god, like, she's successful. What does she do? I think she's gonna run the world. What else does she do? She gets shot on a regular basis. It's like, okay, Justin, that's cool. Have you considered that this is something? Maybe, are you on drugs? Are you on it? I'm like, no, I'm not. No, it's just a chick. It's cool. She gets shot all the time. So yeah, like, we have to get like past that point, because it's always that paradox of like, that suspension of disbelief. But if you start to see the strings of the puppet show too vibrantly, you have to think this is a fool, and you can't really respect a fool. So when does Caleb start asking questions? I already find it fishy that he hasn't, and I'm talking far past plot convenience. But also, we have some oh my god, I love this trope. The learn it hooligan. And I'm not saying there's not people that are doing robberies on the street that have literary references galore. But I'm also saying I worked downtown Detroit for many years, and very little did I have literary works of the golden age be thrown at me. So what do you guys think about Marshall and company? You guys like that aspect of this story? Any thoughts? My only thoughts are fits purposely are perfectly with the theme of the story, but also it does lend to the narrative of these people aren't unintelligent. They're just not able to access the same, resources in which others are, because he's, what is it? The Fisher King, in which Marshall, references. It is a book that I have not read. My point, you get what I mean? Yeah, I'll look it up. But yeah, there's multiple references, literary references, and that's very popular within sci-fi. It's always a Pinocchio thing there, Alice in Wonderland thing here. But I think it really drives home the point of, it's not these people are uneducated, it's they're not, able to access those resources. So I do think that Marshall, I don't watch football that much, but I think he's done a pretty good job. The lettering on his shirts that say his emotions are kind of a tell for poker, so I'd like to play poker against him. It's like, but besides that, Brett, any thoughts on that? I know it's, not much I'm giving you there, but I found it to be a little bit, I don't know, humical. Humorous. Sorry, humical.
It was kind of a comic relief to see him again. It reminded me of the Ed Sheeran cameo in Game of Thrones.
Yes,
just like not an actor at all, but held his own for a few lines there, and it was kind of fun.
Yeah, I believe it's what are you gonna do with the young prince there? It's
Little Lord Fauntleroy.
Yes, there you go. So it's always these like things where
that struck me.
yeah, it's always those things. But I like it because overall that is a truthful commentary on society itself. Is that people aren't necessarily uneducated or unable. They're just not able to have those types of opportunities. And that's kind of what Caleb is presented with is, oh, well, they gave up on you, so you are going to fail. So did they give up on you because you're going to fail, or did you fail because they gave up on you? So it's that paradox right there. And sadly, as many ill-advised and inept analogies I want to make, it is a truthful commentary on society. So I think they really do hit it home with that. It is a trope, though, that everybody's a very much so a masters in the humanities on the street in these stories, and I do love it, though. I think they are driving home a truthful point, though. So we get to the point in which we leave the train and we go to the beach where a decision needs to be made. We've already alluded to this with the bullets and so forth. But during this whole time, we've got what I like to call the Walmart Hardy Boys, Bernard and Stubbs. I mean, I hate to do it, but I mean, come on. How inept can you be? I mean, Bernard's supposed to be so smart, and it's like he opened up some Cracker Jacks and he looked for the little professor spyglass in there, and he has been trying to solve a mystery when he's dealing with artificial intelligence and predictive technology, and he's been so off base. But he seems to be on base here. But is he on base because somebody let him on base? Because one does not simply fly into insight.
No, I mean, I think Dolores needs him, and so he's also handicapped this season. I'm not sure exactly how, but I don't think this is like 100% potent Bernard that we're dealing with here. But
that's a nice way of saying that he's a Walmart Hardy Boy. I get it. You phrased it better. The verbiage was better. I get it. But yeah, no, I agree. He's a little bit suspicious, and he's a little bit paranoid, right? That Dolores is messing with his mind, so that has left him in a situation in which he cannot fully operate.
Right.
But how does he get into insight? Who lets him in the insight? Because this seems very odd. Now, Colin's sacrifice, yes.
Yeah, Martin does. Remember, he was
Martin.
Yeah, from the party, he has to get into the car, and then from there, Martin takes him to the headquarters. So,
and it's important to note, though, that Martin is Dolores, even though we see Martin.
Dolores.
Yeah, Martin bought
the Dolores. So my point is, Dolores was willing to kill herself, because I really don't like to take away from that point. I think it's a really crucial point in this story, and I really think it adds a lot, because all of these clones, these replicants, are Dolores. None are lesser, because they aren't Evan Rachel Wood. So Dolores has just killed herself. I know the visual isn't there, but Dolores has just killed herself.
Well, yeah, because she tells the Martin bot, or Martin Loris, or whatever you want to call him,
Martin,
that his first priority is to protect our friend. And then Martin later tells Bernard, "You're the only one we can't replace," which leads to what's in Bernard. Like, what all have they stored in him? I mean, one of the things that Brett had talked about, was it last week that you talked about Bernard being the encryption key,
Yeah.
Brett?
I got last week's notes right here. People, this is what we're dealing with here. All you other YouTubers, take note of this. This is called real research.
But I mean, I believe that Bernard is the encryption key, or holds the encryption
Abernathy,
key.
are you speaking of?
But, well, no, never, because Abernathy was a one-time use key.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, similar to like what was in Abernathy, yes. I believe that's which he can, Brett, you can go into that in just a minute, but there's something in him, and it might even be more than that, because Dolores wants him to be protected. She tells her other self, Martin, to protect him. Martin does protect him, and he specifically calls out, "You're the only one we can't replace."
Absolutely. That's what I wanted to clarify. He wasn't the key in the sense of Abernathy. He's the key in the sense of how I talked about Caleb and Liam, how he said, "You're the one." This is a similar situation which we're dealing with, in which it's alluded to that there is a series of events and some causality that leads to certain people needing to do this or that. And it couldn't be more on the nose than right here with Bernard. So, because one does not simply fly into insight, but one does not simply answer that either, Brett. So please take your best chance at it.
Well, I do believe that Bernard has the encryption key in his head. I had a theory going back a couple weeks that when in season 2, when he was handling Abernathy in the tent, and Abernathy was...
He hooks himself in.
Yeah, he hooks himself in, and he makes a... Well, I believe... My interpretation is that he makes a copy of that key that says one-time use key, and he puts it in his own head. And from that point forward, we have not seen it, or it has not been used.
Because storing it doesn't mean using it. Like you're bringing up a very valid point that storing something does not mean implicating it. So yes, it still would be a one-use key. And let's face it, they always give you an email check. But go ahead.
And so the one in Abernathy's head was eventually used in the Forge, but the one in Bernard's head, I think everybody forgotten about, except probably Dolores. And I believe that is the encryption key that is going to unlock either the guest data or the virtual Eden, depending on who you ask. Whatever Dolores sent off when she was in the Forge, which I believe to be the virtual Eden.
Yes.
Remember, she changed the coordinates at the last second. So I believe that's why Bernard is special. He has that key inside of his head.
The Forge, from all the information we've been given, and I even checked Reddit, which those people are what they are. That you're just walking through some sewage there.
You gotta be real careful.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know. Trust me. Yeah. No, if you do something that's right, they're like, you stole it from us. I'm like, all right, Reddit, do how you do. I used to have a segment called "Let's Ask Reddit." So no shame to you, Reddit, whatsoever. Just get over yourselves. But anyways, no, it is implied.
The Redditors.
Oh, I blame the institution. I believe the embodiment is truthful of the inception of the institution. Anyways, I run Amino, so you know what I mean. Got a little bit of a bias, but anyways, no, I think that Brett's onto something here because it's been damaged. The Forge has been damaged. It's been flooded. Okay, but the Paradise is what Serac has promised Maeve, which is the everlasting life, which is the everlasting conversation. God save us all. In my opinion. But yeah, so I think that you're onto something there.
I don't think that Maeve is buying what he's selling.
No. I think that, like if Maeve's ever going to attach herself to an evil to conquer another, I don't see that. But why wouldn't you play along? You know what I mean? If there's ever a simulation that's happening here, it would be the one in which was clearly, overtly stated in the first one. Anything in the real world to be a simulation would take away, in my opinion, of how we view humanity, and that is part of this season. A major part is humanity, so we need to see it. We don't need to have it blinded to us. And I've always argued that you don't need to simulate a world in which reality is a very, very fine line as we speak. We walk a razor's edge with the amount of determinism and free will in which we think we exhibit already. So I think that, what we've seen so far is what's happening. There's going to be trickery down the line with Maeve, mainly Serac, having a situation in which he has that in his bag of tricks, and it will play out. But, the information in which is trying to get stripping from Dolores is the information to the Valley Beyond. That is the information that contains the knowledge in which they need to operate Rehoboam. They need this. They are essentially working off of backdated information. So the Forge, I don't know, you can mix it, but my understanding is damaged. I mean, it's kind of like just getting into like the nonsensical little details at that point. But I agree with you, Brett. Like, I think it's, the promise of Eden.
Yes. Yeah. And also, I did want to throw out an alternate idea out there as far as that line. What makes Bernard special that's irreplaceable? One could be the encryption key. Another thing is that Ford was in his head. Like when he was in the cradle, Ford merged himself onto his pearl, so to speak, because Ford's pearl was originally dropped in the cradle. So it's almost like Bernard, at least for a time there, had Ford like directly, downloaded into him. And if it's true that no information can actually be permanently deleted from a pearl, if that's a running theory that I like, then it could be that Ford is still in there and could come back into play, and that's why he's irreplaceable.
Yes, Ford planned it all forever, will always be, and that's one of the problems with Westworld, and one of the best parts of it, another paradox for you, is it's always somebody planned it all. But there comes a point, I agree with you on the point of Ford will come back. He'll definitely come back in a sentimental vision of some sort with Bernard or Dolores. He is the start of this. He will be the end of this, but we do see a lot of the duality, and we see a lot of the parallel storytelling with him. So we do end the episode with Liam being shot. Just really quickly, Jenny, yes or no? Is he dead?
Liam?
Yes.
Yes.
Brett dead, live.
I assume he's dead.
There you go. Oh, you pessimist right there. No, I'd call you a realist. No, I'm playing devil's advocate.
I have no theories about Liam.
No, I love it. I love dealing with people that are straight up. It's like, oh, this is what we were shown, so we'll go ahead and take what we were shown. That's actually very refreshing. Thank you.
There's a line about, before he dies, there's a line about, you can't kill him because if you do, then I lose access to Rehoboam. So the only reason that maybe he is still alive, like barely or in some way, is that Dolores actually still needs him alive.
Well, I'm throwing the notes now. Now I'm throwing the notes. You can't see on camera.
She said that she didn't need him anymore. And we saw her in the next scene talking to Sirach, so.
Right. She had said at the one point, Yeah, she had said at the one point that they couldn't kill him because she needed him alive for his access. But then when they were on the beach, she's like, "We don't need him anymore."
Yeah, it makes.
What do you want to do with him?
I wanted to close it off with that, and I'm so thankful that you realized that, because what was the point of this ride? From the very get-go, he's a surface level, and Brett, if you want to dive into because in your notes you do, discuss how this is. There's levels to this game, and there's a surface level, access, and then there's this deeper access. And now Nolan admittedly takes a very base level approach to this tech, which I admire, because let's face it, it's about the story. It's not about teaching you about artificial intelligence or predictive technology. But at the same time, it's like, how long have we known that Liam didn't know shit?
He just kind of has that look on his face, doesn't he?
Gallagher? Yeah, yeah.
He does look pretty clueless.
Yeah, we need that guy, and he's drooling in the corner. You're like, okay, I guess that's a master plan of some sorts. But what was the point of this? Like, was the point of this to bring Caleb? Because I think that what we're leading to, is just this moment where we have this revelation of these things, this causality needed to happen. This X meets the O. And then it's like, oh, well, this needed to happen on the beach. Because but again, I don't want to fall victim to what I really do criticize even my colleagues about, is looking at some things that are wrong with the plot, some plot holes, and some narrative inconsistencies. And they're like, well, this must be this. On screen with me. Thank you for sharing. Anything that you'd like to leave off, any plugs or anything like that, or any big profound statements that you want to make, on the stance of where the hosts will end up, or humanity in general, or can determinism exist in a free will being filled universe, or anything like that. Any profound thoughts like that on a philosophical level, feel free to go ahead and do that. And this is Top Shelf Fandom. I'm Justin Thomas. I'm so lucky to have two intellectual people on here that have had great theories and insight. And Brett, you blew my mind with your you had my attention, or my curiosity. Now you have my attention, because you said this is like this, and guess what you did that nobody ever does? Followed it up with information. That's crazy. That shit don't happen on here. It's insane. I'm like, what? I'm like, whoa, this guy's backing up what he says. Holy crap. Yeah, YouTube won't take nice to that. So no, I can't thank you guys enough. Cufflinks.com, I believe, is a sponsor of not me, but Axel, and rightfully so. So make sure to check that out. Also, he has a show on Monday. He has a show on Friday. All other television shows that are currently on TV, he is covering. He's probably watching The Bachelor right now and writing down notes about that. So thank you.
Don't let me roll my eyes out loud on that.
Hey, as a capitalistic approach to it, I admire him for it.
He has a good time podcasting about The Bachelor with Sarah on our DVR podcast network. But I am going to say thank you for joining us tonight, Justin. It was great talking with you. Everyone, subscribe to the Westworld Theorycast podcast. Give us some likes, give us some stars and all that jazz. And everybody stay safe and healthy in this time of this crappy COVID-19. Socially distance. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us on the podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of working
and out. Take care of yourselves, everyone. And thanks for listening / watching.
Yeah, leave one review that says, I like that Justin fella. You don't have to mean it. Be like, that guy's got gumption. He's got it. He's got gusto. So, Brett, say your piece. And yeah, I can't thank you guys enough. I've admired you from afar in the least stalkerous way I can phrase it. But no, I've seen your work before. And it's an honor to have you on Top Shelf Fandom. Brett, say your piece, and we will go from there and start questioning the nature of this very reality.
Well, if y'all are on Twitter, I've been trying to compile some of my theories over there, so you can follow me at Brettual. And otherwise, I just wanted to thank you, Justin. It's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing it again.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and look at that. Look at the actual like credence to him just putting his theories out on Twitter. I'm gonna give you some contacts on YouTube. You could sell them to people. There's a lot of people that just know how to speak, not how to think on here. So yeah, no, it's gonna be a twist for them. So plot twist. Somebody knew something. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you soon, or you'll see the good people soon. Probably not. No, I believe we're together next week as well.
You'll see us again next week.
Yes, you will. Yeah, no, I got to get that. I took you off camera from that. But yeah, no, I needed that. But no, it's going to be fun. And I'm definitely hoping that we get a lot more information next episode, because that it should be our darkest before the dawn moment in our plot right there. Everybody tries something, they fail. Everybody's got to learn a little something about the other person, and then they all make it work. So, but it's also Westworld, so who really knows? All right, thank you guys. We will see you soon. Make sure to leave that 5-star review. If you don't, make sure to say something nice about Justin. My vanity